Hello, welcome to Mark Langley's Horsemanship Podcast, a podcast helping people to understand their horses better, to provide solutions in a calm, connected way. I'm Jenny Langley.
And I'm Mark Langley.
We're just going to polish your horsemanship training badge for a second, Mark. We've had this fantastic review that's come through. I'm going to read it through to you. Someone's just written that you were life-changing for them. They joined up to your online membership 3 months ago after reaching rock bottom levels of despair with Angry and the Scary Horse. This is from Jane, and she says that she just wished that she had discovered you sooner. Your videos cover every possible scenario you could encounter. You take your time explaining as you go. There's no frills, no fancy tricks, just common sense. And she feels that your videos are like a personal lesson. Her horse has experienced many positive changes from day one, when she walked into the field unarmed and he came up menacingly. When she stood still, she stood strong, and she was a little scared. But in the end of it, she had her horse lying at her feet, stretching and sighing. She sat down with him for 1.5 hours while he slept. Everything that she's tried from your videos works. It's a still work in progress, but she's coming along so well at their own speed and loving every step. So she says, thank you, Mark, for all your inspirational help and guidance. So well done, Mark.
Oh, thank you. No, it's great to hear stories like that. And, I think everybody that knows me a bit more personally has done a few clinics, and Jenny knows that I was very nervous about putting videos out there for people to learn off. I was worried that people would take it out of context, maybe do something on the wrong horse. But then I also recognise that there's a lot of people out there that, need an alternative to what's commonly being put out there. And I just hope, and I think people are, that have come on board are realising that we're doing this to help our horses feel good. There's still education, there's still discipline in there, there's still things like that, but it's where our horses have to feel good about what they're doing. And I think people are starting to recognise that, maybe these things I won't do with my horse. And so it's really nice to hear that the videos are having such a positive response in people, because, as I say, I was nervous about doing it, but it's so good that I can hear good stories of people making good positive changes in horses that, carry a lot of anxiety and they can feel a lot better. So yeah, thanks for that. It's nice to hear that.
They certainly do help a lot of people, and we're going to get you to keep helping people right now with some questions that have come through. Now, these are kind of random questions. They don't really sort of fit into any particular category. I'm going to get you to talk about micromanaging and also give some float loading advice for a horse that's running out of a float. And then there are some quick fire questions, Mark, so you won't be able to waffle on. You've got to give some short answers to some quite interesting questions that have come through. So we're going to start off today with a question that's come from Laura, who is in Australia. And this is the one about micromanaging. She says that she is struggling with her horse, who's very external and gets anxious. She feels that she has to micromanage his body and mind to try and maintain relaxation. It seems he can only spend a maximum of 3 seconds before he mentally goes outside his body and elsewhere. And she's worried that she's being too hard or needing to ride him like she's shouting in a nightclub to keep him focused on the ride and his mental physical state. She's worried that she's becoming a rider bully. If she does nothing, he gets more worried and spooky and is almost bolting. So she's feeling a little bit despondent, like she's letting them both down, and she's just not sure what to do next. He's an external horse that's mentally like almost humans who have a constant squirrel moment, and I'm not quite sure what that means actually. I'm not familiar with the squirrel moment.
If you are actually. When we were just in England recently, I watched the squirrels, and it was funny because they'd stop and they go, diddle it, and they'd stop again and they go, what's that there? Squirrel it.
Ah, okay.
So it's that kind of they look kind of erratic and quite.
And then they go up.
Yeah, and then they go zoom, and they go straight up a tree. Or
Well, like that. So how can you, yes, if you can give her some tips, please, on how she can try and help her horse not be so anxious.
there's interesting question that, because it's a something I pondered on quite a few years ago when I started, really sort of learning about the advantage of understanding where a horse's thoughts were and how to direct them better and get them more centered and focused. I must admit, the more you start to watch a horse's thoughts and the more paranoid we become and the more we notice all the fine details. And I got to a stage that even myself, I started to think, hang on a minute, am I micromanaging my horse's thoughts? As in, I see you looking over there. Oh, now you're looking this way. And it was constant sort of banter. And then I realised, we're not training horses so we can be responsible for their every thought. We're trying to train our horses so they can be responsible, okay? And I get a lot of horses like yours that are kind of gazing external everywhere else but here. And I'm not going to – sounds like you're sort of doing this in an under-saddle situation. I would take the saddle off and I'd do some groundwork, but it would be in the same sort of context as what you're struggling with under saddle, because you sound like you're kind of getting a bit stressed about, you don't want to micromanage, you want to get in a better place, and you're worried about where you're going. So understanding what you're looking at and what you need to offer is more important than whether you do it under saddle or on the ground. Okay, so when I get a horse come into a clinic that's exactly like that, what I'll do is I'll go, well, this horse is kind of, I can say, let go of that, let go of that, let go of that, let go of that, focus on me, let go of that 50,000 times in a lesson, and feel like every time I take a breather, the horse looks away and I've got to do it again. And that's, I think, what you're feeling. So so basically, it's not about getting the horse to focus on us. It's not about getting the horse just to sort of, relax. It's about, firstly, giving the horse a reason to let go of that external, squirrel thoughts. So sometimes something more important has to happen in the arena. So if I've got a horse that's like that, instead of going every time it looks away, I just bang my leg and get its attention for a moment, I'll do something really big once. I'll just get the flag and I'll go bang, 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 bang on the ground, and the horse might run off a little to the end of the rope. It might go, what was that? And then within a microsecond, I'm just walking along looking for the 20-cent coin I dropped in the ground, not even worrying about what happened. I might even go and just rest and just look around and not even like nothing happened. And the horse go, where did that come from? And I say, well, I don't know. You never know what can sneak up on you in here. And the horse goes, oh. So there's danger in here, is there? And I go, well, I don't know. I'm not scared of the flag doing that. But if you are, maybe you should keep your thoughts in here a little longer. And then all of a sudden what you've done is you've handed the responsibility over to the horse. Now, I don't want to encourage everyone to go and over-scare their horse, but what happens is everything out there becomes more important. And I've seen so many horses come to my clinics that are scared inside the arena, so they're looking outside the arena. But bringing their attention back to you all the time makes you the sort of the problem, because you're saying, hey, look at me, or whatever. So do something that's not necessarily in line with you, but it's something that is big enough to make them go, gee, something just happened in here. So I better pay attention to what's happening in here. And then as soon as they are, you just make that space go very quiet and silent, just stand there quietly. And sometimes I might just walk around, not even worrying about the horse. But as soon as they get sort of too bouncy in their mind, something big will happen, and then it disappears, and I'm just still walking around nice and quietly like nothing happened. And then within a few goes, they'll start to really go, I need to be more centered, and I need to have more awareness in the space I'm in, because something worried me and I was too far away to know it would even was going to happen. So basically, I've heard a story, and it might have been from Harry Whitney, and I've heard it from Ross Jacobs, and I don't know the exact context they were sort of saying it, so I'm not going to quote it as in this is the story, but I just they called it exploding boxes. Okay, if you went out on a horse ride and your horse wasn't, if you're aware that there was exploding boxes and your horse wasn't, when a box explodes, who's going to explode? Your horse is going to explode because you were aware that there was exploding boxes. So when I was walking around that arena and I did something big with the flag, I banged the fence or did something big, a box exploded and the horse wasn't aware of it. So they go, what was that? I didn't know where that was coming from. I say, well, that's because your mind was elsewhere and you weren't aware of your environment. And they go, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. And I go, well, that's because you were sort of destinating all the time. But soon enough, they start to realise that actually this is the place that things happen, not out there, and they become more aware of the environment. And then once they're more aware of their environment, they'll be a little bit paranoid, they'll be a little looky, a little cautious. Then it's your job to make your environment that they're in calm and a place that they can centre. But they have to be aware of the environment they're in, and that's really, really important. So if you can think of it like that, go and play with that on the ground for a little bit until you can just sort of stand dead quiet for 30 minutes if you had to, and the horse will just stand quiet and happy and just let go of all that other stuff. But I've had the best results with the bouncy-brained horses by doing something really important that made them go, I need to have some self-preservation. I need to kind of come in back into myself in this environment. Otherwise, you will become the micromanager. You'll manage your horse, not your horse manage itself.
The next question, Mark, is on the float loading. And for this one, I want you to just describe the video that she sent through on our membership group, because it's a really short video. Something specific happened when she was inside the trailer with her horse. Can you just explain the video first?
Yeah, so the horse was leading into the float, and it kind of went all the way in, and just when she went to adjust the horse, I think she went to move the hip across a little bit. As soon as the feet started to move, and you can kind of see the horse bracing a little bit as she wanted the hip to go across, and then all of a sudden, as soon as the feet started to move, the horse thought backwards, or was kind of already thinking backwards, and then kind of did the best it could to get back outside the float by just backing out quite fast and not coming forward. So I'll talk you through the simple things that I would do, because the horse can go in the float. Well, that's okay, but it's kind of going in the float with still a bit of an anchored backward thought. So that's one thing you've got to get rid of. But what I would do in that lesson, if anyone's got a horse that's kind of going in, but then any movement, any trigger, anything makes it kind of escape back to the outside. And as soon as the horse actually got out, it kind of was looking about where it wanted to go, like where its mates were, or where, So basically, the thoughts were backwards the whole time. So basically, we have to say pulling back is not available. So what I would start to do is, as soon as those feet get on the float ramp, I'd 2 feet on, I'd back up, and I'd probably get your horse to back up. So outside, away from the float, teach them to back up quite good. So, a good back up where you can firm up a little and they can back up a little faster. Okay. So I'd say back up and then quickly come forward. And if I find a pull back and the horse leans, I'd keep doing that until the horse goes, pulling back's not available, I must come forward. Another thing I'd do is maybe get something that bothers the horse a little bit, like you get just get a flag, just wave it a little bit and just say, hey, can you back away from something that's a little bit threatening? And the horse goes, oh yeah, I'm going to back away from that because I'm a bit nervous about it. And then just say, now come forward. And just get them to sort of go through the scenario going, I'm backing away from something, then I can come forward. And then when you go back to the horse float, you say 2 feet on, back out. Now quickly back the feet off, and then quickly come forward and almost say, put a block in that pull back. And I just keep doing that as you go on. So you speed up the process of 2 feet on, off and come forward, until the horse realizes that very soon after being asked back, forward's going to happen and holding and leaning's not available. And you might do that 100 times, just back forward. And for everybody that's kind of doing float loading lessons, don't just get in the rhythm of backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. And we're doing what Mark told me, backwards and forwards, without increasing the rein speed or the rope speed and saying we're in a hurry. Now we're going slow, very carefully. Now we're in a hurry, because it's that hurry that panics a horse and then makes them pull back. So when a horse backs out in a hurry and then you hold a little, that's what makes them put their head up through the roof or something like that, because they're not used to that extra speed. So you pulling forward at whatever meters per second or whatever centimeters per second is okay when the horse is at a standstill. But when they're going out at 3 times that speed and you pull forward at whatever normal speed you pull forward, well, that's quadruple the amount of rope speed or pressure on their head, which is going to freak them out. So to get a horse used to that rope speed that might panic them, you have to expose them to sort of coming forward quite suddenly with that rope pressure, and until they go, oh, that's just a faster rope speed, it's not an attack to my pole, and then they'll just move forward faster with that rope and get that working really, really good. And do that as you're loading. So backwards means, oh, hang on, we better come forward. Backwards means we can go back and stop. Backwards means, oh, quick, we're running late, come forward for a second. And before you even get all 4 feet on the float, and then that'll really help. And I think then by the time you've got him up to the chest bar, at any moment he's thinking, oh, I could back up and come forward. And by doing that, you're actually making pullback unavailable, so that backward thought becomes completely unavailable.
When you were in the States earlier this year, you met someone called Griffin from Virginia, and she would just like to check what she's meant to be doing, because you mentioned with her horse, he had an inability to self-regulate and he was reliant on other horses. So she's wondering, should she be riding him out more often alone or out of sight of other horses, or does she need the distraction of the horses to help work through his focus issue with her?
So, as I remember correctly, Griffin, on your big horse, that big flea-bitten grey horse, he was very reliant on other horses, and he was also an ex-pacer, trotter pacer, one or the other. Standy, he's a standardbred. So he gets his confidence off other horses, and he gets his lack of confidence through pressure because of all the pressure he's been around. And the lesson when I rode him that seemed to get into his head and work the best was just doing a little bit, and as soon as he got a strong thought, I actually got in a little firmer and said, yeah, and I think I said back up until he really let go of it, and then he said, oh, I can't push, and then he softened, and then I said, now quietly, let's do something else. Okay, so it's not about exposure away from other horses necessarily. It's first of all getting rid of the resistance that pressure creates, okay, or the stress that pressure creates. So you can't sort of say, I'm going to work on separation anxiety by gently exposing you to more time on your own when pressure creates anxiety. So if pressure creates anxiety, well, it's naturally going to create separation anxiety. So if you're having a bad day at work or the office, the more stressed you get, the more you crave your comfortable space. So that's what causes separation anxiety, is just the anxiety of stress. So when people are stressed, they want to be at their safe place. So that's the separation from their safe place. So horses are the same. You can get a horse that's calm, never even look for its buddies, but as soon as you pick up on a rein and it's had 5 years of bad rein management, it starts to search for its buddies as soon as you touch the rein. And that was the anxiety of the rein that caused the separation anxiety. It caused the horse to seek a place of safety because of the threat in the rein. So, yeah, exposure and all that doesn't work if the tools that you're using are causing the anxiety to make the horse feel it needs to go to safety, okay? So that's what I felt when I rode your horse. I had to get clear enough in the reins to make a change so the horse felt the change and went, oh, I've had a proper change of thought. Because what was happening is when we were riding and when you were riding, the horse was kind of leaning on the reins and worrying and still thinking somewhere else. But when we said, hey, that's not available, come over here, and he let go of it, then he went, oh, and he could calm down a bit. And he goes, oh, I'm here now. So I would really work on how strongly he hangs on to those thoughts, and if he can let go of them and get that working really good. So first of all, it's how resistant or resilient he is to pressure, and whether he can follow the feel and make that thought change, and keep doing those exercises. And then when he trusts the reins and you say, oh, hey, are you a little bit worried? And he said, yeah, well, take this rein and follow it over here, just like you take someone by the hand and say, come over here. And he goes, oh, thanks for that. When he's doing that really well, then you'll have a tool that can help him out of trouble. Then you can slowly expose him to new environments and gently wean him away from the comfort of other horses or the comfort of his safe place. But you have to have those things working really well so he's comfortable with them.
Okay, quick fire questions. I ask a question, you try and answer it quickly. The first question.
Are we supposed to audition for this first, aren't we? So I know the answer. So because I'm not very good under that sort of pressure.
And you're under pressure now. Okay, well, don't get separation anxiety then. The first question is from Shalina from New Zealand. She's got a young colt that can be quite busy with his mouth with her at times, and he likes to pick up anything, ropes, maybe chews on them. He will sometimes try and put in a nip on her, and he can be pushy, not just with her, but also with other horses. So she thinks he's actually trying to express himself and engage, but it can also happen when he's worried about something. Now, she's heard you say something about there are times when you would allow mouthiness and when you wouldn't. Can you please just briefly say when mouthiness is okay and when it's not?
Quick fire. Okay, in a shutdown horse that's slowly starting to open up, they might start to express themselves. Your horse is not shut down. He's kind of mouthy. It could be anxiety causing mouthy, all that sort of stuff. In a shutdown horse, it's starting to open up and start to communicate. They might start to kind of come over and sniff and mouth, and I would let that because it's a form of communication where they're sort of starting to sort of talk to us and certain things like that. In horses that don't know how to centre and they look for alternatives, they fiddle things, they kind of annoy other horses, they start to fiddle on us. Sometimes it's just an anxiety thing, and those horses, I'd say, I'd kind of do something to make them have a change of thought and then teach them to stand quietly so they can learn to centre and be in their own skin, in their own place. So I'd actually say no mouthiness, stand quietly. So I might do something, a bit of a shock to the system, a bang on the leg, whatever, and they go, oh, what was that? And then just stand quietly. Encourage them just to centre and stand quietly and don't have those thoughts that just keep wandering and causing all these little kind of, oh, what's that? I'm going to play with that. And then one thing leads into another and another. And if you've ever seen two horses do the nippy nip, especially two geldings, it goes nip, 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 then it's nip, nip, rear, rear, nip, 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 then one turns around and double barrels the other one, it ends in a conflict. Okay, that's where sometimes mouthiness can go, especially if the thought behind it is something of an irritability or a whatever. So, yeah, sometimes it's a sign of communication, but what are they trying to tell you? Is it formed from anxiety? Is it a coping mechanism? Is it all these other things? So something in the form of your anxiety, I'd teach your horse to have a quieter mind, which means, stop for a second, stand in your own skin. Don't be so kind of, don't have that little snowball thoughts that wander off and turn into that all the time.
You mentioned coping mechanisms. That nicely leads into this question from Adele. Do horses ever have a panic or shutdown response on different days, different situations, or do they have a default type of coping mechanism?
I don't think they look at the calendar, so I don't think it's the different day that causes the problem. It's the things that happen that cause that day to happen. Okay, so it could be the thing that happened overnight, the tree that broke in the night in the wind. It could be the horse that kicked out at it. It could be a whole bunch of things that led up to that day being a bad day. It's just like us. There's a whole bunch of things that cause something in our head, and we wake up and we're bound to have a bad day because of the mindset we're in. So in the sense of the worry cup, there's certain things that have been put in their subconscious or that unaware that you've been unaware of that's been put in the horse's worry cup. And there's the anticipation of something else that could be the horse being worried about. It might be the horse float being parked in a certain spot. It hates the horse float that causes all this sort of stuff. So I'd say it's not the day. It's more so the things that happen to lead up to that moment that put worry in the horse that you were unaware of that caused the horse to be like that.
Reintroducing the bit. This question comes from Virginie. She has a off-the-track standard thoroughbred whose tongue was tied when it was raced. She's had him for 5 years, always been ridden bitless, as the bit was just creating unnecessary anxiety. She had a bit fitter come out a couple of weeks ago who she got a lot out of, and she found it very insightful. They managed to find a bit that he was comfortable with, and it actually helps to release his tension in his jaw and poll. She'd just like to know, should she start riding him with the bit in a short time at a time, or maybe at the end of a session or during cool down, or what's the sort of program of reintroducing a bit?
Just quickly before we go any further though, there's a lot of professions. There's saddle fitters, bit fitters, there's chiropractors, there's body workers, bone therapists, whatever with horses. But I've decided if I give up this job, I'm going to become a bit fitter because that's the best one out of the lot. The reason being is I can drink as much beer as I want and I'll always be a bit fitter. So that's why I choose a bit fitter. Sorry, you'll have to think about that dad joke. Anyway, so and I won't even have to go jogging to get fit because I'll always be a bit fitter. So anyway, we'll move on to
I'm sighing for anyone.
Jenny's sighing. Sorry, joke of the day. It's quick 5 questions. I forgot about that. So anyway, so basically something that I would say is if the bit has caused, you found a bit that sits comfortably in the mouth, that's really good. It's really good that you got a bit fitter out there to get a bit that fits. Now, once upon a time, they used to make bits to...
Short answers, Mark, please.
They used to make bits to the particular horse's mouth. Now they're all generic, okay? So that's why you kind of need bit fitters to work out the best one to fit, I suppose. So if the bit's comfortable, then what you do is you ride in the side pull, make it set up so it's not... you got a whole bunch of stuff on their face, so I'd probably put the side pull on and then put the bit on so the bridle goes around the side pull, and then I just ride your horse as normal in a side pull. The problem with a side pull, sometimes the rein pulling out the side can bump on the bit a little bit, so you could actually try in the safe area riding in a halter while the bit's in the mouth, so get the horse to back up in the halter, steer in the halter, ride around and just carry a bit in its mouth and do all the things softly under saddle that you've taught it already without a bit in, but just carrying the bit so the horse doesn't start to associate the bit with all the problems. So you can ride the horse for a week, a month, 6 months, just carrying a bit in their mouth, just knowing that that's okay. And then what you can do is start to influence the horse in the bit. Now, there are different ways. They're all kind of good in their own way to get a horse to kind of follow the bit. Some ways is you can sort of have like a rein connected to the bit and the halter, and you can just pick up a little feel of the bit and then just take a little feel of the halter and say back up, so the horse gets a little feel of the bit and then learn and backs up off the feel of the halter until eventually the horse is sort of, comfortable at going, oh, this is the same thing, it's just coming from a different area. That's something you can think about doing. Otherwise, if you can still do it just with the bit, but if the horse knows the movements, knows the steering, knows everything, you just start to pick up on the bit. You can do it on the ground just quietly, just put your hands underneath their neck and just pick up the reins and say, just back a step, and just teach them firstly to back up off the bit, and then just gently, while you're standing beside them, just, the leading pass lessons that you've done in the holder and all that, just get your horse to lead pass and just turn, follow the inside rein in a little bit, things like that. And then, just start to ride around in a safe place and just replace that side pull with the bit or the halter with the bit. And because you've done this much time in good movement and flow in the reins in the bitless riding, then it should start to kind of, the horses has the alternative now, whereas once upon a time it wouldn't have.
Fantastic. Okay, that's it for this week. Mark, you've done well. Thank you for all the questions that have come through from all our amazing online members. We appreciate you being out there. It helps us to keep going with what we do, and we do really enjoy being able to help people. That's why we do what we do.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to Australia's very own Mark Langley, a horseman with many insights from his decades of dabbling. Jump online to keep learning. marklangley.com.au